Title: Impressed Kate Examines Museum's Eclectic Collection. Kate Lockwood had always thought of herself as someone who had seen it all. A retired art historian and a world traveler with dusty notebooks full of sketches and critiques, she had wandered the cobbled streets of Florence, deciphered brushstrokes in a tucked-away atelier in Prague, and once slept overnight in a Japanese shrine just to experience its morning light. Nothing much surprised her anymore. But the Bellamy Museum of the Eclectic, perched unassumingly at the end of a quiet lane in the village of Winthorpe, changed that. The building looked like it had been stitched together by multiple architects who had never met. A Baroque facade adorned with Ionic columns stood against a wing of minimalist concrete cubes, with a Gothic turret thrown in for no discernible reason. Ivy spilled like green lace over much of it, and a wrought iron gate bore a weathered plaque that simply read, "The Eclectic Collection." Kate had come expecting an amusing detour, something local, quaint. But what she found was something else entirely. Room 1. The door that led nowhere. As soon as she stepped inside, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the polite, muffled hush of typical galleries, but a deep, almost ceremonial quiet, like being underwater. The foyer was lit by a chandelier that dripped with amethysts. On the wall, a handwritten sign announced, "Please proceed. Curiosity is your ticket." The first exhibit was a door. Just a door. Oak, well-crafted, with a brass handle polished to a shine. But it was set into a freestanding frame, not connected to any wall. A placard beside it read, "Please subscribe to my YouTube channel." The door that led nowhere. Acquired, 1972. Provenance, unknown. Function, subjective. Curious, Kate grasped the handle and opened it. She felt a soft pull, a whisper of wind that wasn't wind. The other side was simply empty space, a glowing mist that rippled like heat. She half stepped in, but stopped herself. When she shut the door again, she found her pulse racing. Function, subjective, she murmured. Indeed. Room 2. The Whispering Instruments. The next chamber was filled with musical instruments, but none were familiar. There were violins shaped like curled leaves, pianos whose keys ran in concentric spirals, drums that looked like turtle shells split and polished. Above each one, a plaque invited her to play, but with an asterisk. Warning: sound may attract memories. Proceed cautiously. She hesitated. Then, choosing what looked like a wind instrument shaped like a twisted nautilus shell, she blew gently. At first, there was no sound. Then, a warm note bloomed like honey across the room. And in its wake came a vivid image, a sunlit kitchen, the smell of lavender, and her grandmother's laugh. Kate blinked, stunned. She tried another instrument, a harp woven with copper filaments, and suddenly she was 12 again, sitting on the grass at summer camp, her first sketchpad in her lap. Room after room, the instruments summoned moments she'd forgotten, a dance in Madrid with a stranger, the cold joy of a snowfall in Vermont, her first heartbreak. The memories were not painful or overly sentimental, just real. Rich. Close. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. When she left the room, she felt tenderly unraveled. Room 3. The Unwritten Book. The next space was entirely white, walls, floor, ceiling. In the center, a single pedestal displayed an open book with blank pages. Above it, floating midair, was a glowing quill that hovered, poised. A sign read, "The Unwritten Book. What story are you not telling?" As she stepped closer, the quill dipped to the page and began to write on its own. Kate Lockwood arrived expecting a relic. Instead, she found a reflection. Not in glass or marble or paint, but in air, in silence, in the hush between heartbeats. She had buried her own story for decades, tucked between travel guides and dissertations. Now it asked to be heard. She gasped. The words were dissolving as quickly as they formed. She reached out to touch the page, but the quill stopped. The room blinked dark for a moment, then slowly returned to light. No evidence remained. The book was blank again. Room 4. The museum within the museum. This room was grander than the rest, with vaulted ceilings and golden trim. Inside were dozens of miniature replicas of museums. Tiny dioramas, each more detailed than the last: the Louvre, the Getty, the Uffizi, even the Tate Modern, all rendered in breathtaking, to scale accuracy. But at the center was a replica of the room she was standing in. She leaned in. It showed a tiny figure of herself, in perfect detail, right down to the red scarf she'd worn. She blinked again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The tiny Kate turned her head. No, she whispered, backing away. That's not possible. The figure moved again, raising its tiny hand. Was this illusion? Projection? Trickery? Or was it real? Kate looked up, half expecting to see a giant eye watching her from the ceiling. But there was only a mural: stars, clouds, a stormy sea painted in sweeping, impressionist strokes. The line between viewer and exhibit was blurring. Room 5, the impossible garden. Suddenly, she was outside. Or at least, it seemed so. Grass carpeted the floor, impossibly lush. The ceiling opened into an artificial sky streaked with shifting clouds. Flowers bloomed with metallic petals, and vines writhed subtly as if in slow motion. Trees bore fruit of every imaginable variety, mangoes next to apples next to silver pears. A woman in a velvet cloak stood by a fountain made of stacked books. She smiled at Kate, but said nothing, simply handed her a seed. The seed glowed faintly. A sign beside the fountain read, "Plant what you fear. Watch what grows." Kate hesitated. Her first thought was, this is performance art. But then she remembered the whispering instruments. The door. The book. She knelt and planted the seed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a small shoot emerged. It grew quickly, winding itself into a pale, translucent flower. In its petals, she saw flickering images: her failures, her regrets, the decisions she had never dared to make. But as she looked longer, the petals shimmered and changed. Those same images morphed into acts of courage, of healing, of beauty drawn from imperfection. She felt tears gather. This place wasn't mocking her. It was listening. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Room 6. The Hall of Others. The final room was long and dark. Along each wall, illuminated portraits floated in frames with no visible support. Each portrait showed a different person, captured in moments of transformation. A woman throwing away a mask, a man stepping out of his own shadow, a child stitching together a cape made of letters. Each portrait bore a single line of text beneath it, sometimes a quote, sometimes a fragment of dialogue. Kate approached one that caught her eye, an older man gazing into a cracked mirror. He thought he was broken. Turns out, he was blooming. Another showed a teenager leaping from a burning notebook. She mistook fire for loss. It was release. At the end of the hall, a blank frame awaited. Her own reflection shimmered there. The plaque beneath it was still being etched by no hand she could see. She came seeking artifacts. She left with something living. The lights dimmed. Epilogue. The gift shop. Because, of course, even in the most surreal places, the museum ended in a gift shop. But this one was different. Instead of souvenirs and novelty mugs, it sold possibilities. Notebooks with infinite pages. Bottles of captured light. Time, sold by the minute or memory. Even a box simply labeled, perspective. Kate bought a single item, a mirror the size of her palm. The clerk, a child with ancient eyes, wrapped it in a poem. She didn't read it until she got home. Not all museums hold dead things. Some hold you. Not for keeping. For remembering. And then releasing. The return. Weeks passed. Then months. Kate told few people about the museum. Most wouldn't believe her. Or worse, they'd reduce it to metaphor. But something had shifted in her. She began writing again. Painting again. Reaching out to people she hadn't spoken to in years. Not dramatically, quietly, but with intention. And in every gallery she now visited, every dusty archive or glittering showcase, she saw traces of the eclectic. Not the exhibits themselves, but the philosophy behind them. Art is not just about what we preserve. It's about what we become when we look. And when she sketched her own work now, it had an edge of magic she hadn't known she carried. Or maybe had forgotten. The museum had shown her something that no collection ever had. That the most eclectic gallery of all is the self. Subscribe the channel to get such videos.